Good evening everybody and welcome to GPVWC's coverage of the Superleague's Austrian Grand Prix here at the Red Bull Ring, which I like to call the A1 Ring. And it's not just me that will be talking you through the action this evening. I've been joined and I'm going to ceremoniously uncoop the cider very quickly before I get around to the formation lap by Matt Williams. Hey Matt, welcome.
Thank you very much, pleasure to be here.
Whoop whoop whoop. I'm so sorry for the short introduction, but I'm going to dive straight into... there we go. Yes, swiggage. That's really nice. Toast to Matt for joining us. Let's quickly run through the grid because we are joining just on the formation lap for 71 laps here. It's Giuseppe Ranieri that's on pole for Midnight Motorsports ahead of the CSG duo of Lewis Redshaw and David Fidek. Nick Rowland is in fourth position. The top three were separated by less than 2 tenths, by the way. Then the two Hawkeyes right behind of Harley Hamnet and Gergo Baldi, ahead of Augustin Canapino for Nordstone. The two Red Archer VRTs of Devidas Missilis and Ben Horrell. And then we have Morten Vernonson and teammate Kenny Lybeer, 10 and 11, ahead of Pavel Luknovsky and Mikhail Tumala, rounding out the top half of the field. After that, we've got Ruud Heesterbeek, 14th for Nijo, ahead of the Phoenix F1 of Kieran Ryan, a PB for him apparently. Roy Schroten, 16th for the Woods Racing car, ahead of Boyd Bryson, 17th for Phoenix. Ben Warren, 18th for the Woods Racing team, making his comeback and start to Super League, ahead of Adam Rouse in 19th. Tommy Covenant, 20th for Green Stripes. Kerno's got Matt Richards and Mark Wicks in. Kerno returning to the league, so it's great to see that team back in the fray. The STs of Mark Fuller and Calvin Hermsey. The Nijo of Tom Vandervoort had a 10-place grid drop down to 25th. The targets of Vindegaus Columbus and Jordan Week for 26 and 27. Head of Torrent Motorsports, Petter Kaza rounding out the field in 28th. And very quickly as they're lining up onto the back, any particular people you're looking out for today, Matt?
Well, so the CSGs have been dominant, but the Simcraft guys, they just completely knocked out the park in qualifying and beat the best lap time by quite a considerable margin in quali. So I would keep an eye on those 4 drivers right at the front. That should be a good fight.
The eyes are going. The last couple of cars having a bit of issue getting into their grid slots. So the lights will be on hopefully in a smidgeroo. Brought to you as ever by Simon Malouche, who we wish a get better soon from his herpes he appears to have contracted. Then here we go, the lights are coming on then for the Austrian Grand Prix 2014 for GPVWC Super League. We are racing, off and away we go. Ranieri fantastic off of the line. Unfortunately Redshaw's bogged down slightly and Rowland's going to have a go. Redshaw now goes into the lead from Ranieri having a real issue. Problems towards the back. It's Petter Kaza's lost his left front. And Mark Fuller's in trouble too as a green stripe runs out towards the back. Everyone else pretty much through though, and it's Redshaw who in the second phase of that start launched into the lead from Ranieri, who I think missed a gear. Rowland's got round Fidek though for third. Fidek trying to go round the outside, gets forced off right wide and drops behind Nick Rowland. Then it's the Hawkeye of Hamnet. Contact further back between several of the drivers. But yes, Petter Kaza and Mark Fuller with a big accident at the back, and Kaza's without a left front wheel.
A great start from some, an unfortunate start from others by the look of it, but Lewis just nailing that start there in the warm-up. He had quite a few practice starts, that's clearly paid off for them now. And a little bit of contact into turn 3, just a little late on the brakes, cold tyres, being sat on that formation lap. Has just cost a few drivers there, but everyone seems to be circulating now, moving into Sector 3 for the first time.
Harley Hamnet getting ahead of Nick Rowland and David Fidek down at turn 3, runs out nearly wide into the 6th of the 7 turns here at this Red Bull Ring, which I detest calling that. I think should we refer to it as A1?
I think so.
Yes, A1 all the way. A1 GP, remember that. Redshaw leads then from Ranieri, Hamnet, Rowland, Fidek. Baldi goes past Canapino for 6 and 7 down into turn 1. Gets a real tank slapper on the exit. Canapino's having a little bit of a look. Everyone's favourite sweetie in the Nordstone. Right behind him is Kenny Lybeer doing a great job ahead of Heesterbeek and Sumali, a top 10. Contact between Hamnet and Rowland slightly. Hamnet gets on the acceleration for third position on the exit from turn 2. Retakes that position around the outside. Great defensive driving. Side by side for 6 and 7. Baldi and Canapino though down into turn 3. I think Canapino's going to seal the deal, but that one's been a long time coming. Oh, contact between Baldi and Lybeer. And that's a real shame there. Lybeer spinning round and managing to avoid the rest of the field.
Indeed, I think that was just an unfortunate case of wrong place, wrong time there. Those two so busy scrapping amongst each other, focusing on themselves. Unfortunately, Lybeer just wrong place, just ran into that one. Not much you can do about those. But Meanwhile, while all that's going on, Redshaw and Rainieri have just gone, right, that's it, boys, we're off. They've already built, after just, well, 2 laps now, it's just about to complete, a well, nice and healthy 3.5 second gap to the next car behind. So all go off the start here.
Wow, well done. Petacazza then, our sole retirement, did park it. We can't get the wheel back on the car. Sometimes it will happen if the suspension's gone a bit doolally, but it didn't there. Kieran Ryan, 16th position, just diving past Roy Schroten down into turn 1, runs a bit wide on the exit, and Schroten does the switcheroo. Retakes it back through side by side up to turn 2. And that turn 2 with its uphill braking zone, you can brake massively late on the brakes. Ryan going around the outside, Schroten on the inside, Rouse nearly losing it right behind in the Torrent, doing a great job there for the underfunded or underdeveloped car. And that will do them quite nice. I can see that one running on and on and on. But you're right, up front, 3.6, the gap between Redshaw and Ranieri, and Hamnet, who appears to be walking third. Although, to be fair, Matt, no one's really right up his anus.
That's true. Perhaps just a little bit of conservation. We don't think Tarway is going to be that big of an issue this evening, but a little bit of preservation or conservation early might pay off later on. We'll have to wait and see. One thing I just wanted to call out, Boldy had a lovely move early on this lap. He's got ahead of Canapino for now, but Canapino chasing him down quickly.
Well, Ben Warren's unfortunately lost the legs on the rest of the field because he's collected Mark Wicks, and the two of them have gone off and rejoined towards the back of the field. And even Mark Fuller's got round them, and Boyd, someone's in the pits actually. It's David Missilis doing, I think, a drive-through. So I wonder if he missed the start or something, because he was right up the field and now he's right at the back.
Yeah, Wicks just pitting as well. Perhaps a little bit of damage. He was certainly shaking the car around a bit then after that bit of contact. Hopefully he can get it repaired now there.
Lap 4 then of 71 at the A1 ring, and it is Monsieur Redshaw, and he's got a certain feisty Italian stallion right up behind him. That's a sloppy Giuseppe all over your rear end as they come into the last double right-hander. Such great flow to this circuit. We were discussing this before it came on air actually, how much we enjoy the flow around this circuit, and it seems to be fitting perfectly into their momentum. And doesn't it seem the case sometimes that you get into a rhythm and you'll pull a couple of guys with you and you get into a class of your own sometimes?
Absolutely, and the wonderful thing about this track as well is the elevation change, because the corners, they all flow into each other. The hills help with that, you know, as we say, just going through turn 3 here with Redshaw and Rainieri. You know, they can break that a little bit later, just gets you a little more focused and in the zone, and you've got this lovely run down here, down towards turn 4. Just a real driver's track, and one, as you say, once you get the rhythm, you can really start to pull away and cause a serious issue for anyone behind you trying to keep up. So as we're up to a 5-second gap now from Rainieri to Harley Hamnet, who is in P3, yeah, it's going to be difficult to make that time back. We'll have to wait and see what happens.
Huge shout out to Mikhail Tumala, who's just in 8th position, stopped a lunge from Ruud Heasterbeek, and nearly lost out to Ben Horrell, who's in 10th, and that Green Stripes car has not been anywhere near the points until the last couple of rounds, where Mikhail has dragged that car kicking and screaming for all it's worth up the order, and certainly holding his own in a fantastic 8th. Heasterbeek in 9th, lead Nijo at the moment, but he's got Horrell behind, who's showing his best form so far in a Red Archer today. Ever improving race on race has been Ben, and that's good to see. And Pavel Luknovsky, it's his first race for a good while in the Norge zone, sitting pretty in 11th. Nice little midfield cluster there.
Absolutely, and actually as things have been going on, speaking of the Norwegian cars, just keeping an eye on Canapino and his little fight with Baldy. He's dropped off a bit from Baldy in the last lap and a bit or so, so that may be a pace issue, perhaps conserving the car for later, but he seems to be slipping backwards a bit, so we'll have to see what happens as we progress, of course.
Like David Fiduk, who in 5th position is desperately trying to see what he can do about Nick Rowland, who's ahead, not really hassling Harley Hamnet massively, but they can clearly see that they're being bottle corked behind. They've got Mark Wicks that they're coming round to lap already. He's been for repairs, and yes, it's going to be issues. Massive 3-way scrap for 17th and 16th, and Adam Rouse takes Roy Schroten and Davidas Missilis at the same time, 3-1 down at turn 3. I'm amazed that they all came out the right end. Roy Schroten trying to go defensive, fantastic battling by these lot, and right behind, Bryson, Weeks and co are all battling away, and I think we've had someone go off the track.
Yeah, we definitely have just had someone lose a bit of momentum. I think that was, I think that may have been Hermser. He certainly seems to have been caught up by Fuller quite a bit in this lap. But yeah, good call on that three-way scrap there. We did see in Formula Challenge on Tuesday night several great moves being made down there into that left-hander, and well, more progress made there. So good overtaking done in these early laps.
Jordan Weeks lost it into turn 6 under pressure from Kenny Lybeer. Both Lybeer and Kovenen went through. Weeks has rejoined in 22nd and is moving over, I think, to allow teammate Indigo's Columbus through. And Columbus is the sole person to have started on prime tyres against the options. In fact, he does stay behind, but I find that an interesting strategy because that will give the clue to the rest of the field and exactly how long that tyre can last. Rouse versus Missilis down into turn 3 for 16th. There we go. Cameraman extraordinaire, so 28 laps, so that's the answers. And Missilis goes through and takes 16th position. Oh, smash from Luknovsky and Horrell. That is a huge one in 12th position. Where's the carnage gone there? Frankly, everywhere.
Yep, look, Horrell's car looks pretty much done, missing its rear wing, missing its right rear tyre. Lovnovsky seems to be recovering, but you've got the rest of the field charging through now. Have to be careful not to catch anyone else out.
That was Horrell catching the back of Luknovsky. There's a weird bump in that chicane. I caught it a few times when we was in the wet qualifying, and it really unsettles your car, and I wonder if Luknovsky was a little tiny bit slow there, and Horrell just ramming into the back oh so gently, but the two of them just go whoosh off, and Luknovsky into the pits, Horrell out, so that's 2 down already.
The fight for 15th, 16th and 17th continues, so we've got Schroten taking a look at, that's Ryan. I think Ryan's missing his front wing and seems to be locking up his front left there, so that might be some damage involved in that contact. Yeah, just heard from our cameraman, thank you very much. That slow moment at turn 1, and he's hit the wall, so that's disastrous, and in fact he's off in the gravel trap there at turn 4.
Decided to go skinny dipping on all the gravel, get the beach sun whilst he's out in Austria.
Indeed. Meanwhile, Rainieri and Redshaw. Rainieri is catching ever so slightly. He's only 1/10, 2/10 if you're kind, behind now. And yeah, this one's developing. We don't know what the tyre life necessarily will be of these option tyres, but if the primes are only going to do 28 or so laps, we've got a 71 lap race here. We're looking at potentially a few stops here. Just calling the time right on the tyres. You don't know, Rainieri might get that undercut. We'll have to see how things go. For me, I think Rainieri has a bit more pace than Redshaw at the minute. So we'll have to see how this one goes. And we've got some traffic ahead. We've got a recovering Lovnotsky. So hopefully he'll get himself out the way so it doesn't cause too many dramas. But we'll have to see as we go through this last double right-hander to complete this lap. So these two still streaking away, now up to 6.5 seconds from Harley Hamnet, who's still in third.
Just running off the rest of the field while you're watching that battle. Nick Rowland's still in 4th position, shadowed by David Fiduk in the CSG in 5th. Then Gergo Baldi's in 6th, not too far behind. Canapino, as you say, drops off to 7. Tumala is in 8th, and he's pulling away now from the Nijos of Ruud Heesterbeek and Tom Vandervoort, who's kind of closed onto the back of that slightly. Morten Vernonson, who started 10s, down to 11. Matt Richards, the youngest driver in the field, is in 12th position, followed by Davidas Missilis in 13th for Red Archer. Penny Lybeer 14, and Roy Schroten currently holding the final point for points racing, and boy would they need that. Tommy Kovenen's just ahead of Jordan Weeks and Columbus in the 2 targets. Rouse is right behind them too. Boyd Bryson in the Phoenix having a disappointing run so far, ahead of Fuller and Hermsey. And then we've got the lapped Luknovsky, Warren, Ryan and Wicks. So clearly everyone that's a war or a rur in trouble here in Austria.
Yes, indeed. A little more traffic negotiated here for our leading pair, but
Lap
continue
9
to pull away.
Sorry to shout over that one. I was just saying on Twitter, for Calvin, you have to survive until at least lap 9 before you get lapped, because he was joking that he'll take out Lewis Redshaw. And I find that highly hilarious that it was on lap 9 completed that they done that.
Well,
Prophecy.
there you go. Prophecies indeed.
I am Jesus. Actually, that would be scary. Let's not say that.
Well, the gap continues to build from Hamnet to Rainieri, so clearly Lewis and Giuseppe do not want to hang around. They want to build a gap, perhaps pit stops. Who knows? We'll have to find out.
All Fiduk on Rowland. For
Indeed.
4.
Yeah, good spot. Nice and late on the brakes. It looks like Fiduk's got that one done and dusted for now. Let's see if he can hassle Harley at all as we head towards turn 4.
Could hussy it. I'm sure he could.
I'm sure he could. Oh!
That's roly-poly having a go, isn't he?
Yeah, Roland's not giving up though. He's had a little cheeky look, but not this time. Not close enough.
Different lines through turn 4 as well there. Fiduk takes a much wider entry against Rowland's tighter initial start to that corner, and it's like a deceptive eye, because then you're like, oh, he's going for it, but he's not really. But he's got himself into a great position for this down into turn 6, but choosing not to dive it through. That corner is so deceptive because of the downhill sweep that you kind of take more speed than what you initially think. I think.
Indeed. And those anti-cuts, they're evil. They flipped a few cars during the week. Hopefully we won't have that again, but yeah, a little mistake there and you could be in some real trouble.
Sound like you may have experienced that one.
I did in practice for Performance Challenge commentary after I actually got out the pit lane. So, so yes, one to avoid for these drivers. I'm sure these guys, tip top of their game, they will have no issues there.
We'll soon find out how tip-top they are, especially with the leading duo. The pressure builds between Redshaw and Ranieri. 8 seconds clear, and Giuseppe not giving them any leeway at all. And they're coming around to lap Calvin again. So I don't know what's going on with Calvin, but he's been lapped for the second time in 2 laps. So issues there for him, as there's been a change of position. It's Matt Richards going round the outside of Davidus Missilis to retake 12th position, but Davidus is going to have another go down to turn 3.
They're just keeping an eye on our third place position man, Harley Hamnet. He's being caught ever so slightly now by Fidok since he's been released from Roland. So keep an eye on that one as we notch up the miles and the laps here. But look like to be catching. He's clearly wanting to catch up to his teammate. Get another 1-2. We'll have to wait and see how this one pans out.
Third retirement of the day, Ben Warren disconnecting by the looks of it as a DNF. That's a shame for Ben on his return to the Super League. See if he'll be in for Woods Racing again in the future. Didn't do too badly until at least turn 6 or 7 where it went a bit wrong, but take them as you find them, and unfortunately we found him selection wanting. Do 25 runners and riders left.
Indeed, and the gap closes ever further between Fidok and Hamnet now. Down just to 0.4 of a second. It was almost a second last time round. So,
oh, Ranieri in the lead! My goodness me, what was that? Sorry to cut across. Mark Fuller really bulking down into turn 6. And has Mark Fuller just changed the course of this race? Has he, my fanny? Jesus.
We'll have to see now if that Simcraft Motorsport or Simcraft Midnight Motorsport car has got some pace in it. I think it has, so we'll have to see if it can do anything with some free R now. And of course, roles reversed. Now Lewis gets the opportunity to put a bit of pressure on him and see if he comes unstuck. So we'll have to see what happens. But meanwhile, Fidok back in P4. He was just having a quick look at Hamnet there into turn 3. So plenty to keep an eye on now. Roles very much reversed. We'll have to see how we carry on here on lap 14 of 71.
And it's grasp on third position, maybe tenuous at best. The gap between Ranieri and Redshaw 0.8 of a second now as they work their way through. And yes, Harley ran in a podium position quite earlier on in Canada, where he'd got off to a lightning getaway. And he held that quite nicely through the first stint of the race, and then just shuffle back slightly through the pit stop phase before eventually disconnecting. And Hamnet's ping relatively high on several occasions on this lap alone. Makes me slightly worried for that in the future. But Fidok right onto the back. Hamnet goes defensive across the line to start lap 15 of 71. Ryan exiting the pits alongside. But ooh, Harley doing all of the blocking down into turn 1 that he can. And now he's trying to straddle the racing line on the up through to 2. He needs to pick his racing line and commit to it. He's gone for the outside, the optimum racing line, but Fidok's up on the inside. And clean as a whistle, he goes through and doesn't look massively effective, but it certainly gets the job done. Hamnet goes aggressive down the outside for 3. That will only end up in a closed path unless he can do the undercut on the exit. Trying to do that, but Fidok will have the inside for this left-hander, and there's never anywhere to go when you hit the exit of that.
That's very true. It'd be fair to say the Hawkeye car, it's got some decent upgrades. It's got a fairly fresh engine on board, so I wouldn't count Harley out at all. I think he may be just conserving the car, keeping it all 4 wheels on the wagon, and getting as far into the race as we can. They had a good showing out in Montreal last time, until the disconnection, of course. So hopefully you'll have better times up ahead as we're now approaching a lap car as we head up to turn 1.
It's Mark Fuller again, so let's see what he does this time by. Fidok Hamnet, Roland right on the back there, and all that's allowed Gerger Boldi to claw onto the back. He was about 2.5 seconds off, but is now no longer the case. Down into turn 2, Roland through, and then Fuller cutting back onto the racing line, causing Boldi a bit of an issue. So Mark bit to a line on the braking face of the corner and stay there. Canapino in the background actually missing turn 2 entirely there and losing a little bit of time, but he's on his own little battle in 7th position. Currently still 18 cars on the lead lap of the 25 running.
And as all that has been going on, our leaders, Redshaw and Ranieri, they've caught a big old gaggle of traffic, and Ranieri definitely benefiting there, just catching them in the right place. He's been able to extend his gap now to 1.6 seconds. And well, it remains 1.6 seconds as they cross the line here for lap 16, going on to 17. So Ranieri pulling away ever so slightly every single lap, but having said that, Vidocq is a further 9 or so seconds behind them, and he has some free air, so I have to see if he's able to settle down and get moving.
Very, very competitive in the qualification session, just a quarter of a second away from pole position, but he's not exactly pushing away immediately from Hamnet, is he? As Hamnet gets a little bit lap happy on the exit of 2 and pushing down to 3.
They're just a cheeky little look there. It's a good idea to keep an eye on that turn 2 exit there. In warm-up, quite a few cars were putting plenty of power down and getting a bit squirmy, so we'll have to see if that's a factor as the tyres ever so slightly start to go away. Hopefully everyone will be able to get some nice good exits, give it full jandle and attack their nearest rival down into turn 4.
Bit of jandle.
Can't go wrong.
Jandle and a love handle. That sounds like my idea of a Friday night fun fest.
Lovely.
Hamnet and Roland continue their little squabbleroo. Just going back to where you were saying about the squirming on the exit of stuff. When you're setting up a car, do you look for that as Roland goes deep into one and loses a lot of time actually? Expect that to happen in the middle of the race, because obviously as the tyres go off your car handles differently as you go through the set. How do you personally go about setting up your car to either have that or avoid having that?
You always want to make the car, I think, as easy as possible to drive, especially in longer distant events such as this. You're driving for over an hour and a half potentially. You want to make sure that you don't have to work too hard at any one time. Just one mistake, you'll end up in a wall or without a front wing, and that can be your race well and truly ruined. So personally, I always look to try and conserve as best you can. Sometimes the track's against you, sometimes it's the nature of your car's against you. But personally, you want to make sure you want to try and keep those tyres in as good condition as possible. And of course, if the time is right, a cheeky gamble on pitting for a fresher set, trying to get the undercut, that can always help as well.
Adam Rouse in 17th position, going past Jordan Weeks into turn 1 for 16th. Officer Torrent up just one shy of a points-paying position. Jordan quite fancying a run back through. The Target Racing team have had a torrid time in terms of actual finishes, but when they do get the car home, generally they are in the lower end of the points. Fortunately, Adam Rouse on the lower end of the grip spectrum as he went out of turn 2, and Weeks retakes that position. And that's looking quite good. Tommy Coven's not too far behind them either in the second of the green stripes, but Adam Rouse retakes that position with a plomb down into turn 3, and that sorts that one out, whilst Boyd Bryson splits up Hamnet and Vidocq slightly, and that's now actually allowed Vidocq to push out a slight gap from the following 2, and that could be all that he needs to get out of that slipstream and start to pull away slightly.
Yeah, and one thing to call out actually, Lewis Redshaw has been able to gain a second back in the last few laps. In fact, it's down to 0.4 of a second of the gap now to Ranieri, so evidently he's turned his car up a bit. He's going to put a little more pressure on Ranieri, and let's see if he can take the pressure as well as Ranieri put on him early in the race.
How easy is it to turn it all on when it matters?
Very tricky. Very
in a racing sense, Simon. I know what I mean. I hope everyone else knows
we all
what I
do.
mean as
We
well.
all do.
You.
Well, so the only experience I've had of pressure is, well, probably the few laps I led of ITC round or race 3 at Pucahole, and to be honest, you're so focused on keeping the car on the black stuff just normally. To have that extra mental capacity to start thinking about the car ahead, just shaking them, causing that little, just that little thought of, okay, what do I have to do to cover this guy? Now, if you can have that extra little bit of mental capacity, that will, of course, aid you in every possible sense of the word. So it's not an easy thing to do, but we do tend to see the great drivers, be it real life or sim racing, they just seem to have this ability to just be able to switch on that a little bit of extra pace, meanwhile maintaining that thought process about driving the car. And that's the difference between a good driver and a great driver.
Got myself out of that description the moment you said mental capacity. As Boldy's round. Boldy's off and he's going into the pit lane. Has he spun it trying to get into the pits? Yeah, he's caught it on the exit on the curbs between 6 and 7, spun it round, and then he's gone, screw it, I'm off into the pits. It's all a bit ramshackle on the entry, but the Hawkeye driver was in 6th position, 7th as he came into the pits. Mikhail Tsumala's in as well. I wonder if he just got it a bit wrong. Mark Fuller in too. Clearly, this is the time for pit stops.
Indeed, and in fact, we did see in warm-up a few drivers practicing those hyper late entries into the pits, and a few did lose the back going in. So evidently that must have just caught out Boldy there, and well, unfortunately he may have just lost a bit of time to the cars around him, but more importantly he's kept the car running undamaged, and he can rejoin in a moment with some fresh tyres and perhaps make an impact on the race as the others try and pit for tyres as well.
Absolutely. A bit too bold for his own good. Kieran Ryan, I think, has been into the pits as well because he's gone for the prime tyres, as has Calvin Hermsey as well. Pavel Luknovsky pitted about 6 or 7 laps ago, so I don't know if he'd got damage or something because it was a bit too early for it to really be part of the strategy, but he switched to the primes as well, as Matt Richards is also now exiting the pits for Kerno. So he'll rejoin in 17th position.
They're just keeping an eye on the leaders. The gap now increased. Aronieri is responding. He's now got the gap up to 9/10 of a second. So responding to that little bit of pressure from Redshaw. We'll have to see, obviously, these guys, as with everyone who started on the option tyre, running on probably some fairly used feeling tyres. So we'll have to see if they're just going to bring the car home into the pits this time around, or if they're going to start trying to really elongate the life of this tyre to help them go further into the race, and perhaps not have to do a second stop.
At 22 of 71 then. When are these guys going to be popping in as they pop round Calvin Hermsey for the 3rd time in 20 laps? Started now. It's Ranieri then from Redshaw. Fidek is in 3rd, Hamnet 4, Roland in 5, Canapino 6, Easterpeak 7, Vandervoort 8, Vernonson in 9, Wernonson, not Vernonson, is in 9. Missilis is now up to 10th position. Boldy's our top pitter in 11, ahead of Libir Tumala, who has pitted. Then it's Schroten and Rouse, your point scorers at the moment. Still running as Weeks, Richards, Kovanen, Bryson, Columbus, who is just crossing the line now. Then Luknovsky, Wicks, then 2 laps down, Fuller, and Ryan with 3 down, Calvin. Diamonds, Warren, Horrell, and Casa.
Slight development there as you're just reading out our race order. A load of time has been dropped, a load of time has been gained in the Ranieri-Redshaw battle. The gap down now to just 3/10 of a second, so 6-7 tenths there dropped. Didn't quite catch where, but there's traffic ahead, so that could have played a factor. But all to keep an eye on, as Wicks, actually, the traffic in question, has actually gone into the pit, so that's just opened up a lovely block of free air for these two to continue to run into.
Absolutely. The next one up the road is Mikhail Tsumala, and he's pitted, so actually he's got good pace. They won't catch him for a wee while, potentially. And he's gone out on the option tyres again, so that should help them quite nicely. He'll have more grip. And this is Redshaw right onto the rear wing of Giuseppe Ranieri. It's been a while since we've seen these two interlocked into battle. Remember the clash that they had down at Turn 1 at Bahrain. And the ensuing "I'm so sorry" from Giuseppe. They've barely been on the same piece of tarmac since. I think this could well be fireworks in the waiting. The pressure has been building between the two, a power game of minds, to be fair, which has swung 1 Giuseppe, 0 to Redshaw after the incident with Mark Fuller. Now, as we approach the first pit stop phase, which way will the pendulum swing again?
Exactly, and the great thing, of course, with these longer races is strategy does play such an important part. I'm sure both of these guys will have assistance on a virtual pit wall, albeit, but just calling out where everyone is around them, calling the shots as far as pit stops go, and just giving them that little bit of backup, that little bit of relief, as well as trying to find that little bit of edge as well to beat your competition. So the gap extending now back up to 6/10 of a second, but as we carry on through this pit stop phase, we have to see who blinks first and how they react.
Well, it's going to be very interesting because they're all in the same TeamSpeak chat room together, CSG and Midnight. Not necessarily with the same managers for each other. Lucas Euler, everyone's favourite winner of the world, is just in there giving some help and support to the Midnight guys. For once, great to have you with us. As Hamnet has... Oh no, that was a bit of lag from Hamnet. He's rejoined back ahead of Roland. It's Canapino in the pits, that's why I was getting confused. As Missilis takes Vernonson for 8th position on the exit of turn 1. And they're now going to catch Canapino, who's still getting up to screen, as Lewis Redshaw pops into the pits from the lead. How's this battle going to end up down into turn 3? Canapino keeps it, and Missilis and Vernonson come to blows down at 2, but side by side on the exit. Don't want to call that one down at turn 3.
Yeah, that could be a little dicey, but these guys have been fairly kind, giving each other plenty of space, which is what we like to see. And we've got a little bit of an undercut here, but not enough to get alongside heading down into this left-hander. So not this time around. These guys also, or still are running on option compound tyres.
He got through. That was Missilis goes Rouse. It was signed, sealed, delivered with a little X on the end as they go past Rousey. Ooh.
Just
that made
about enough room.
That was a sphincter shaker, wasn't it? Redshaw came out into a nice patch of clear air, so he couldn't have asked for more on that one. Now it's going to just remain to see how Ranieri comes in. The gap between the two, 23 seconds.
Yeah, and yeah, free air is exactly what you'd want to just focus, get into your rhythm again, start putting in those great lap times, and the undercut can gain you several seconds potentially, as obviously the old tyres just fail to give you the grip that you're looking for. So we'll have to see if Fidoc does the same thing, i.e. pit this lap. Meanwhile, Hamnet appears to be pitting in P3, so Redshaw will gain a place back immediately. But a lovely massive free air now for Redshaw as he crosses the start finish. Next car is his teammate, who is almost at the end of Sector 1.
Playing nicely for him. The gap, though, has gone up to 24.2 seconds, despite him coming back out on the option tyres. Obviously, it always takes a lap or two to really get yourself back onto full-blown running. As Missilis in 7th position all over Augustin Canapino down into turn 6, and they give each other enough room, but that looks a bit scary, and Davidus deciding to say this is pit stop time, and he dives out of that one, giving Canapino back 6th position for now. Giuseppe Ranieri being held up though because he's on the way into the pits and was being caught up by Kenny Lybeer and Kieran Ryan, who were busy one lapping the other whilst being lapped. So a bit of an unfortunate one there, but Ranieri's in.
Indeed, and
what happens.
And it's the right time to do it. I was just keeping an eye on him as he went through Sector 2 there, and he was starting to get a bit squirmy on those tyres. So we'll have to see. As Fidoc comes in, that may prove a factor if he can't be released safely and all the rest. But by the looks of it, that's all been done nicely. So good work from the pit crews there. And I have to see where Lewis comes through. He was 24.9 back. And to my eyes, Ranieri, he's timed that really well. So we'll have to see if Redshaw, warm tyres, can gap the bridge a bit and put a bit more pressure on. Notice that little mistake, while the tyres and brakes are a little colder than normal, you might be able to just force that little opening and get ahead.
Anything to me, the gap has increased somewhat as they exit out 2.4 the gap. Viduc is come back out well in 3rd ahead of Harley Hamnet. The gap between those two has increased, if anything. So, if anything, if I was Viduc, I may have accidentally entered the pits at 10 miles an hour slower than I needed to. See what I could have done team-wise. But Hamnet under great pressure from Nick Rowland, and they've got a whole bunch of traffic to get through as they lap Fuller. Canapino has got Vernonson all over the back of him. Neither have pitted. And it's great to see Morton doing very well in that Vodball racing car. A car that's very much upgraded, but they just haven't had the chance to do anything with it at all. See him popping around in 7th position at the moment.
Indeed, and a nice little scrap developing here between Canapino and Williamson. And Baldy's not that far away. He was first of our pitters. And we'll have nice, warm, toasty tyres as Wernerson. Little cheeky look up the inside there into the left-hander. Just forced, I think, Canapino just to give him a little bit of space, just run him a little wide, lose a bit of speed, a little bit of momentum, which is all critical on these undulating corners.
Battle for 4th and 5th, just jump to that very quickly because Nick Rowland's about to go up the inside and take... Ooh, that forlong camera view made me a wee squirmish, but Rowland's up into 4th then ahead of Hamnet. and Hamnet looked to have to back off ever so slightly. Going to get for the slipstream right at the last minute. Is he going to take a lunge? No, he does not. Nick Rowland seals the deal for fourth position for the time being.
Indeed, and now Rowland will have some free air. He might be able to challenge Fidok perhaps in a little while. Now he's got some free air himself. That Simcraft Midnight car, very, very well built, well upgraded, and got a pretty fresh engine in it to boot. Pretty efficient as well, which always helps. So I have to see if he can do as Fidok has done and get a little bit of free air. That gap at the moment between Fidok and Rowland is 10 seconds, and we will see, as these chaps haven't yet pitted, if they pit shortly or not.
Boldy being really held up by the Wernerson Canapino battle as Mark Fuller's off the track from binning it in turn 3, and that's actually allowed Boldy to get alongside Wernerson as the Fuller rejoined onto the track minus a front wing, and through he goes through the chicane. That was a bold move from Boldy. So obviously beauty is with the boldest today for that man, and back up into 7th position. Net 6 potentially once pit stops are all sorted out. Great battle as well. Tumala has got Heasterbeek and Vanderbilt right behind him for 9, 10 and 11. And it's unusual to see the Nijos battling around for 10th position and not something like 5th or 6th.
One thing I'm just keeping an eye on is the time between Redshaw and Rainieri. It was 2.4 when the pit stops all played their hand. It's now 2 seconds. So Redshaw and Rainieri still both on the option compound. Got a fresh set of option boots on their cars. At the moment, it looks like Redshaw's making the hay while the sun shines.
Just to confirm from Ben Warren, he's just tweeted to say, sadly, it was a internet disconnection that caused his retirement from the race as Heasterbeek and Vanderbilt do get around Kieran Ryan. That looked like it was about to be messy, but my heart can live on for another corner or two as we continue on our way. And yes, now up to 2.8 the gap, because Redshaw completely running off wide at the exit of turn 2. Help him at all.
Absolutely, time lost, and that's the worst thing. You know, you start to overdrive the car, and you start to do yourself no favours whatsoever.
And become a bit like a issue as Rowland continues to defend from Hamnet for 4th position. Because once you start to lose time, you start to panic slightly in the where do I gain it, and that can lead to even more overdriving. Unlike what Hamnet is about to do down to turn 3, Rowland closes the door right at the last moment and says, I don't think you will be, Skippy. You've got to find another way through, as Wernerson pops into the pits off your screen. Canapino and Boldy touch wheels in 6th and 7th position as Boldy takes that from Canapino.
Lovely little pass there, Canapino. He's back down into 7th, but yeah, not quite been able to hold on to the cars ahead of him so far this evening. But we don't know what strategies are being played out. We know the car's a good one, so we'll have to see how they get on. Meanwhile, Baldy now has, I think that's the other Nijo, as it happens, of Lovnovsky ahead of him, which he'll be lapping in a moment. So that'll be some free air he will get an opportunity to run into as he now chases down the other Hawkeye of Harley Hamnet, who's the next car up the road, 15 seconds.
Mates together, just whether or not they're on the same lap is an entirely different story.
Very true.
Ranieri now 3 seconds clear of Redshaw as they've had to get round Wintergas Columbus and lap them, which has lost him slightly a bit of time. Fiduk then on his own very much in 3rd position, 10 seconds clear of Rowland and Hamnet. Such is the amount of time that they've lost in their own personal squabble. So that's really played into the hands of David. Then in 6th position we've got Boldy, then Canapino. Tumala is in 8th position, ahead of Vanderbilt and Heasterbeek. Vanderbilt has got round Heasterbeek in that squabble as they pop a lap on Boyd Bryson. Then it's Missilis, Vernonson, Liebeer, Schroten and Richards. Your points for us so far. Lipnovsky catching Richards though at the rate of knots.
They Baldy just pulling out a slight gap now to Canapino. It's up to a second, as the move was done well, approximately a lap or so ago now, physically on track. So that's a second gain this time around. And the gap continues to increase between those two. So Baldy, clearly he has a mission on, and he wants to catch his teammate up at a rate of knots. He just has to navigate this back marker here of Wicks, trying to grab all the slipstream as they go across the start-finish line there, trying to gain every little bit of an advantage there. But he has a job to do now to try and bridge that gap. It's a big old area of tarmac to try and cover, but I'm sure he'll be able to give it his best shot. Meanwhile, actually, speaking of teammates, it looks to me like Fidok is actually gaining a bit on Redshaw, just as things have gone. Gap was about 13 or so seconds. It's down to 12.3 now. So potentially want to keep an eye on. Second phase of the race about to begin. Like Vidoc's coming into his rhythm a bit of his element. Have to keep an eye on that one.
Sadly, Jordan Weeks, however, needed to keep a bit more of an eye on the grass because sadly he broke on it and has gone off down in the entry to that fast chicane and has crashed out of the target racing car from what was 21st position. That is now out of the race, so that's our fourth retirement of the day, and actually we're not doing too bad on the old reliability and disconnection fronts, he says. Commentators curse probably now, but not too bad compared to what we've done in recent races.
Indeed, and of course, you know, with limited spending money and all the rest, a contact, a lost wing, a damaged engine, and all the rest, that can be a big impact, especially to some of the smaller teams. So a bit of a drama and a disaster there, but we'll surely be back for the next round in GB. Oh, sorry, just keeping an eye on the two Nijo drivers, got Van der Voort and Easterbeek. Very nearly came unstuck as a backmarker just went off at the final corner there and nearly came on in front of them. That was a bit of a hold on to your underclothes moment there, but both survived this time round.
Alvin doing his lemon best.
Yeah, indeed, and indeed, and these two scrapping really nice and hard. Good to see that there's good inter-team battling going on there, and as long as, of course, they don't run into each other and ruin both their races, I'm sure their team boss will be happy with this as well. There
is no love lost between Tom Van der Voort and Ruud Easterbeek. It is the love. It's what I'd like to equate as an Asian arranged marriage, only with Europeans in a racing team. They've had some interesting debates over the course of the year, and it's generally been Ruud that has had the upper hand in that team. But over the last couple of races, as that car has become slightly less competitive, it's as if Tom hasn't moved anywhere on the grid, whereas Ruud has moved down it. So they've kind of met in the middle somewhere now. And they're having a great little scrapperoo, but I can tell you what, whoever gets whoever's scalp by the end of that will be having one hell of a pizza at the end of the day.
I'm sure.
Because Kieran Ryan's just crashed out as well in the Phoenix Racing, from 22nd, and that was down at turn 3.
Oh dear. More, that goes to the commentator. We've not quite got to 50% race distance. We will do by the end of this lap, but hopefully they won't stop and drop. Well, hopefully they won't start dropping like flies. Meanwhile, I'm just keeping an eye here on the scrap between Harley Hamnet and Nick Rowland for P4 and P5, and it looks like Harley's ever so slightly gaining. So want to keep an eye on as we churn up the miles here.
And badly, go for it. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yes. And meanwhile, I'm just keeping an eye on the other battle I'm trying to keep track of as all this is going on between the two CSG teammates of Redshaw and Vidoc, and that gap is kind of hovering around the 9-second mark now. So a little bit of movement in this second phase of the race. We'll have to keep an eye on it as we carry on here. But we've clearly got a breakaway group. Everyone up to, or I should say down to P10 has now been lapped by the leaders, just showing how quick the pace is here this evening. As I think that was Lovsnovsky just leaving the pit lane for a fairly, well, that must be a one-stop strategy hit in there for tyres, fuel, and whatever else.
It is his second stop, but it's that was an extremely short stint because he pitted on lap 25, and that was only 10 laps he done on that set of option tyres. But we think that would be from damage from where he was collected by Ben Horrell, wasn't it? In that ginormous off, because he was running the prime tyres to get it out of the way. So yes, I think his strategy has very much been ruined. He's having to pick out the best of what he's got.
Indeed. Which is a real shame, of course. You know, these longer races. You know, a small moment early on and you can just lose touch, But well, we could see he might be able to try and push all the way to the end on one set of tyres. That would be quite a good little challenge. I certainly remember when I was doing World GT last year, a few rounds, actually at Watkins Glen in particular, where in mixed conditions being able to make the tyres last was quite good fun on its own. Just keep yourself amused as the laps tick down. So we'll keep an eye out and see how he gets on.
Gary will be up for a little bit of close work soon. He's caught the battle for 8, 9 and 10 to Marla Van der Voort and Easterbeek. They could very well be all busy watching each other and not the Midnight Motorsport car coming up on their rear. They're going to be coming all over their rear and flying over the top of them if he's not careful, or if they're not careful, more like.
Yeah, indeed.
and they're coming around to lap another car as well, so it's all going to be neat. They've got Rousey ahead of them.
So hopefully we'll have a little bit of air and grace given, let the leader get through, and then have this great scrap continue. Just pause it for a lap, lads, and we'll get all this sorted out.
You never pause a race. As someone that always ends up being blue flagged at some point during the first lap of the race, it's I look for those opportunities where I can let the leaders through at specific points where I know I can floor it straight afterwards and crawl out behind them, so that I can then attack if there's someone directly ahead of me to get through. Because I'd say about half my overtakes have been done ever through that way, and it's getting messy with Ranieri.
Oh, just enough space, just. Oh, that was a bit close, but they survived for now. So
I think I've seen 3 into 1 at that corner and survive.
Oh dear, but somehow they've kept all wheels and associated aerodynamic pieces on their cars, which is good to see. And
Redshaw's now 1.8 behind.
Oh, indeed, very good spot. So Redshaw, I'm sure, gaining a little bit of time there through the traffic dramas, and of course, so many cars being there to pass. Unless everyone's, of course, very compliant, very conveniently lets you through, you are going to lose time in these big gaggles of cars. So I have to see how Lewis negotiates this one.
Don't forget you can send us your tweets with hashtag GPVWC. I'm enjoying the ones that we've got so far. Read some of them out towards the end, especially if you're enjoying the race. And obviously we've got the YouTube chat where you can join in if you click on the view live stream, which actually you have to be watching to have seen anyway, so shut up, Simon. La la la!
Oh dear. Anyway, just keeping an eye on the Hamnet and the Roland battle here. The gap is ever so slightly coming down lap by lap now. It's down to 0.3 of a second. Last time I saw a sector split here, so this one's going to get interesting again. We've got as the leaders has passed through here, I think all the way down to 7th place has now been lapped at least once. That's Canapino, so he'll have to be the next guy watching out for that Rampage Ranieri, that very quick Simcraft Midnight car.
Rampant Ranieri sounds like a film that you could only get from an X. It's Bradshaw was significantly held up there by Heasterbeek, but he's now not making massive headroads on Tom Vanderbilt either. So I think, although he gained 1.5 seconds as Ranieri got through this traffic, I don't really think Redshaw at the end will be able to gain too much from it either, because he's had just as harsh a time, if not quite so hairy down at turn 1 as Tumala actually pits, and that could help him, because that's one less he needs to deal with, and that releases the Nijos to try and run in clear air, and they're going to have to work together as a team now to ensure that they don't spend so much time bitching with each other that they lose out to Tumala in the long run.
Exactly, and of course bump and drafting won't quite work here, but
bump and grind yourself.
But yeah, if you can, just sit in your teammates' backdraft, get that little bit of slipstream, and help each other, pull each other along the track, you could do the old double jump there. But as things have happened, Redshaw, he's down to about 2.3 second gap now on Ranieri, but I think more importantly, he can see him now on the racetrack. So a little more motivation to try and catch the car ahead and put the pressure back on. So we're only 41 laps in here. We've still got another 30 to go. So plenty of time to make a move. or get it wrong, yeah, indeed.
I like the way how you go for the positive side and I just to go for the negative. We've got both bases covered.
I think we do. I think we do.
We are practically a... that wasn't the word that I was going to use. Carry on, Matthew.
Yes,
on.
I shall, as the gap remains at 2.3 between Ranieri and Redshaw. I guess you would perhaps consider, as a driver, would you get on the radio and start questioning, oh, can I turn my engine up? Can I do this? Can I do that? But of course, you've got support. They will have your management, I should say, will have that wider view of the whole championship. You might be able to gain in this one race, but if it puts you at a detriment for the rest of the season, I'm sure you'll be kicking yourself later. So again, it's very much a game of consistency here. You want to make sure that you score consistent good points, and well, to date, that's what the CSG guys have been doing, and they're running 2 and 3, so that's another good haul of points for their Constructors' Challenge as well as their Drivers' Challenge.
And especially the consistency, I think, plays a massive part when you're thinking long term, because of the amount of points that are now on offer for a win, because obviously 25 for the win. If it was still a 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 can afford to take that risk a little bit more, because the fallout for doing that is so much less than what it is now in the points rack as Mark Wicks pops into the pits. And I know it would play in the back of my mind as to, I won't go for the race, I'll go for the long haul if I was in that position where I knew I'd be in contention long term.
Yeah, absolutely, and I would be exactly the same. It'd be great to have the glory every now and then, but at the same time, as I think that was perhaps a little bit of lag, but Redshaw getting a little leery out of that turn 2 there. Yeah, of course, you want to try and win that Drivers' Championship, and you don't do that by being fast on a few occasions. You need to be fast on many occasions. And again, as we're talking about great drivers and great drives, it's very much more important, I think, to have brilliance everywhere almost, to realise those battles which you aren't going to win and keep the car nice and safe. The likes of Alain Prost proved this, could always calculate and think about the bigger picture. And, well, he got a lot of success. We'll have to see how things pan out here.
Got a massive nose. I never quite understood the aerodynamics of that. He used to be
at the same time as
Tom
Vanderbilt
Vanderbilt
last lap, a little bit of like Redshaw getting a little leery out of that
position.
too there.
Team boss Chris
Yeah, of course, you want to try and win that Drivers' Championship.
By the
Don't do
time
that by being fast.
That's finished, because there's a second gap between them now, so he can have his heart rate calm so slightly. As Holmesy goes 5 laps down on lap 43. Ideally, you just don't want to be more than 7, because otherwise it shows that he was in trouble. Looking actually in the qualifying times, for most of the session, neither of the ST racing cars were actually within the 107% rule, if there was such a thing. Both did get inside by the end, but it showed that ST were really having to run their car to the absolute edge. Competitive. It's great to see them both running still. ST have had torrid reliability record. The little team that maybe can, excited to get some more money and laps on the board that can only happen.
Exactly, and of course, as you're just mentioning with reliability and everything else, their engines are not as prime as some other teams perhaps here, and their car, of course, it does have some development parts on it, but compared to some of the bigger boys fighting a little bit further up the field, they certainly have a lot less to work with. So it is great to see them continuing to run round, and you never know, there might be a drama, and they might be able to gain a position, perhaps even a point or two.
Bigger boys, bigger boys! What I think of when people say that. Other images, but 2.9 then the gap between Ranieri and Redshaw. Looks like they've got a relative gap in the bulk of the traffic, just Boldy up ahead, that about to go a lap down, which will leave just the leading sextet on the opening lap. Tommy Covenant running very slowly with no front wing though, in the Green Stripes Racing in 20th position, and that was a crash down at turn 3. Hit the barriers, so problems there for Tommy, but at least he can get it back into the pits and keep going on his merry little way.
Exactly. And another little fight that I was keeping an eye on before between Roland and Hamlet. Roland, he's got that gap back up now to about 1.5 seconds. So evidently, perhaps tyres going away from Hamlet, we don't know. Or he's just thinking about next phase of the race, coming up to 2/3 distance now. So perhaps a late charge, we'll have to see. But keeping in touch, I think, more importantly, with the Simcraft car just ahead. And that Hawkeye car is pretty handy. It's got some good bits and pieces on there, so plenty to use, and hopefully we'll have a bit of a grandstand finish between all the drivers we have remaining now.
Hawkeye must find things a bit tenterhooks on a way. They're 7th currently in the Constructors' Championship. They have shown some great pace throughout the opening half of this season, just has not translated into finishing results. They've had Harley Hamnet, Boldy, and of course they've got their 3rd driver, which is Cantona, Oscari. And between them, they've all got the knack of being able to DNF as much as possible. And I'm just hoping that they can continue to bring it home, because they only need a few good points. And then they've got Red Archer, Torrent Motorsports that are way above anywhere where they really should be in that car. And the Norge Zones kind of within grasp, but they need a run of 2 or 3 Grand Prix where they actually finish where they should, so that they can leapfrog to where they should be in the Constructors, very much like Williams in F1 this year.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and they do have the car to do that. And at the moment, if things were to finish as they are now, there's a good haul of points. So we've got Boldy in P7 and of course Harley in P5. So that's a good haul of points. And you just need to get that little bit of momentum, a little bit of confidence on the go. And it's amazing what a good qualifying result, what a good race result can lead into. You just bring that extra little bit of confidence, which just that makes you push a little bit more. And you never know, you might even surprise yourself how quick you can go.
Boyd Bryson in 17th position. Rouse has just exited the pits, having a go at Roy Schroten for the 3rd time in 3 corners. Surely, if he just keeps throwing it at the poor Woods Racing driver, eventually you'll get up there, run away by hook or by crook. The South African driver, who too is no stranger to bad luck in terms of connection front, is now having a go down the inside. He's well known for being a man who does like to use all the muscles down into a corner. And minute contact there between himself and Schroten. But Schroten's getting his Schrotens right out to the wall and keeping to the inside for this double left-hander, and it looks like he's retaken that 16th position for now, which when Richards ahead comes into the pits could well end up being between themselves, Rouse and Richards, the battle for the final points paying position, because they're all on roughly the same pace, but slightly different strategies that will all come together at the end.
Indeed. And a brief update on the great little fight that we're seeing between the two Nijo drivers earlier on. I believe that Heasterbeek has got by Van der Voort for P8, and moreover has got a little bit of a gap now. He's got Fidok behind him, who will be passing him, I expect, fairly shortly to lap. But Heasterbeek currently taking the top honours at the Nijo team.
Beaking all the pies, as Bryson had another go at Schroten again down at turn 1, didn't quite work. Needs to back it off for a corner or two and then make a concerted lunge, I think. And not get so tank slappery on the exit of 2. So easily done though, so easily done. But actually that's worked to his advantage, such as the straight line ability that Phoenix F1 car has got. It is, I believe, better powered than the Woods Racing car, but clearly not being able to find a way through the South African versus our favourite Dutch brothers. Of course, his brother also a sim racer, and the Schroten brothers normally in a team together when they're busy doing endurance and stuff.
Just keeping an eye, continuing to keep an eye on the Roland Hamnet battle now. That gap now up to almost 2.5 or so seconds now. So Roland is starting to just get those laps together, just continually pulling a gap to Hamnet. So yeah, so just noticed that Canapino, he seems to have disconnected, so that's another retirement, which is a disaster, because he was up in P6 for Nordchen. That was their leading car as well, I believe. So disaster there.
Yeah, disconnection just down into turn 6, completely just flicks off. No warning of it particularly either, so that's a real shame for Augustin Canapino. And Canapino was lying in 9th in the Drivers' Championship, and that will be the 3rd retirement of the season. So not the best striking of finish rates, as Thomas van der Voort pops into the pits. Nordzone, I think, will be licking their wounds ever so slightly there.
Yeah, and of course it's always frustrating when, in particular, you get disconnected from a race, especially when you're up in the points solidly, like Canapino was there. But it's all part and parcel of it. You might have a car failing, you might have an incident, or you might get disconnected. It's just one of those things. You've got to bounce back from it, come back stronger for the next round.
Come off that strongest round actually with a 4th and 6th for the Nordzone team. They look like they'd really turned a corner, and it's good to see them still solidly in the top 10 pace-wise. Obviously swings and roundabouts from track to track, course to course, upgrade to upgrade. Who is that overtaking one slightly dodgily? It was Boyd Bryson getting past Roy Schroten in the end for 16th and 17th position. Nicely done actually, to be fair, Boyd. That solves that little squabble-a-roo for the time being.
Indeed. We've just got a few cars just exiting Sector 2 here, going into Sector 3. We've got Libya. And yeah, we've got P4. That is, of course, Roland there catching these knots. They have to be aware of that. In fact, actually, Roland now hits. So Hamnet will inherit 4th place temporarily. Now let's see how Hamnet responds here. Will he take the opportunity to try and put a quick lap as he can in and grab some fresh tyres himself? He looks like he'll get round turn 1 here and avoid being held up by Kuva9 there as he just exits the pit for a pit stop himself.
Redshaw with his own pit stop rejoined into a little bit of traffic, thankfully ahead of the massive gaggle that he could well have ended up behind. He's just got a couple of drivers ahead of him, so make sure that he uses that to the best of his advantage, because there ain't going to be no more pit stops, at least scheduled ones anyway.
Indeed, and Redshaw switching onto the prime compound to get that tyre usage out the way. So 2 stints on the options, 1 on the prime. Pretty solid strategy there. And as we heard earlier, these tyres should, as long as there are no dramas, take him solidly to the end of the race. So, so all the way to the flag now, final third. Get your race boots on, and let's get some quick laps in and try and make a move on Rainieri, who hasn't pitted actually yet. He went deep in his first stint. Looks like he's going to be doing the same here.
Boot dish, unlike Heasterbeek, who's in the pits for Nijo. So a lot of our 2 stoppers coming in now and getting on their fresh boots. What that does do with the Canapino retirement, by the way, is move Richards up into... Luknovski's up into 13th, Richards to 14, Schroten back in the points for 15, with Rouse, Bryson and Clumbus really left in that battle for the points-paying positions. Everyone else a bit too far back, unless there's further retirements to have much of a say. And that'll be interesting to see how that one works out. Currently, CSG, though, are the team that are going to end up with the most points if it was to stay as it were, because CSG have got 2-3 and Midnight are on a 1-5. Now,
yes, now that pit stop has occurred. So, to a degree, as point scores and point taking on to the next round goes, Harley could be the ace in the hole here for CSG. Playing an unlikely advantage as Harley now pits, responding evidently to Roland's pit stop there. Let's see.
To you? It could be to you.
It could be. So, so let's see if he gets caught in that big gang of cars. We'll have to wait and see.
Boyd Bryson's just binned it in a rather large way, exiting the final turn, and is retired in the Phoenix just whilst that's going on. That sorts him out from the points-paying positions.
And to further complicate things, Rainieri is now having to make his way through traffic, just about to exit sector 2 here. He's got past Schroep, and next up on this is Wernerson. So, of course, he wants to make sure that he gets these... Oh, and
Roland's
there goes Rainieri. Rainieri straight into the pits, so he's had enough on these tyres.
Contact between Hamnet and Roland almost on the exit of the pits as the battle for third position gets really, really heated. Roland's down the inside, Hamlet's on the outside. Contact between the two. That was 2 completely different lines, and they were only going to meet in the middle, sadly, as neither particularly paying much attention to the other, as Ranieri's in the pits as well whilst that's gone on. But Roland keeps that position for the time being. Ranieri exits the pits though and is well clear of Redshaw. He's exiting turn 1. Redshaw's just crossing the start-finish line. That gap has increased as Fiduk takes the temporary false lead for the time being. But Roland versus Hamnet, what did you make of that one?
Yeah, it's a bit of one and half dozen than the other, really, wasn't it? I mean, I think Harley was perhaps going, oh, blimey, my competitor, he's right there. I can have a go at him here. But, of course, cold tyres, colder brakes, just coming in from a pit stop. A little clumsy, but thankfully they're both going. They haven't seemed to have caused themselves any major damage. But Harley now got a second gap to make up to Roland, who's got slightly warmer tyres. But you never know how these things will work out. Both on the prime compound here, so also running to the end of the race, as long as no other dramas occur. So yeah, if I were Harley, I'd try and get any move if you're going to do one done as soon as possible. You've got fresher tyres, you'll be able to last long into the race here. So it's either make the move now or wait and hope the tyres go away.
Talking of last-minute dramas, though, they nearly had one with Pavel Luknovski, who completely locked up his brakes coming out on these brand-new option tyres in 13th position. Ran off trying to avoid smashing into the back of one car, and I think that may have upset Roland ever so slightly because he was directly behind them wondering where on earth are you going. Missilis is in the pits from 7th position. He should stay there, I would imagine so, although Heasterbeek is closing him down quite nicely. That could be one actually on the exit of turn 1. No, Missilis is going to get that for the time being. Heasterbeek is the faster of the two, so they will come together at some point. With 21 runners and riders still going, by the way, after all of that. Calvin into the pits yet again. 5 laps down, but still plodding on.
Yep, absolutely. And you never know. Although mass retirement is incredibly unlikely, you can't rule these things out. You cannot rule these things out. It is unpredictability that we love, and unpredictability we may well get.
Sorry to butt in there. Near contact again between Tom Vandervoort and Mikhail Tsumala for 9 and 10. That was on exiting the pit lane, and they've both leapfrogged the green stripes.
Sorry to call over you, but Rainieri has had a moment around turn 1, and Redshaw's surely going to capitalise here. We just saw Fiduk go into the pits to evidently get his pit stop done and a slight error, I think. Just going on exit, perhaps taking a little bit too much curb, getting stuck in the dirt, who knows. But Redshaw evidently is going to be much closer, 1.5 seconds of the gap now. He does have a car to pass. Oh, never good, never good. You know, along with disconnections and all the rest, screen minimization is probably one of the worst things to happen because, of course, you are literally a complete passenger at that point. So, Ranieri well recovered in that case, but Redshaw, he must be feeling pretty confident at this point to try and make something happen. We've got a fair old way to go yet, so anything could happen.
I think we've just had Harley Hamnet harpooned by a green stripes down at turn 1. He's got back going again, but that car looked like it had been absolutely smacked up the rear. Ranieri, though, when is he going to get a break? Because when he's going for the lead, he has a disconnect or a screen minimization. And the problem with that screen minimization is as soon as that happens, all you can hear is the sound going and you're like, you can just hear the crash about to happen. It's nothing worse. And it's just, I'm glad that it's a screen minimization and he wasn't running complete full screen and it just kind of crashed to desktop, because that would have been a real shame for what's been an absolute classic race so far.
Absolutely, and to be honest, out of a disconnect or a black screen, I'll probably take the disconnect, because you, as you say, you can hear whatever's occurring, and you have absolutely no control over it. And it's, to me, I'd rather be disconnected and go, oh, well, that's that, rather than potentially, you know, hit someone, ruin their race, or, you know, ruin your own race through no fault of your own. So, thankfully, he's been able to get that one sorted, but Redshaw definitely the beneficiary there. The gap now 0.8 of a second, so that's gone down from several seconds to less than a second, just a few laps. So that spiced things up a bit, which is nice to see.
What's that date rape drug where you know what's going on but you can't do anything about it? I'd liken that to the screen feed. I can't remember what it's called. Is it G or something? I'm not sure. Vandervoort and Sumala still scrapping over 9 and 10. That one's far from done. Heasterbeek is not too far up ahead of them and is on the slower compound tyre, so that could all come together to the fore with a few laps left to go. We've got 14 on the trot, still to go. 0.8 of a second cover Ranieri from Redshaw. Just 8.4 back though is David Fidek in clear air, and if those two at front start to get into a battle which is more about actually doing dives and defending from each other than running what they'd done earlier in the race and just ran away from everyone, that could very well play into Fidek's favour. Roland then in 4th position, half a minute back from Harley Hamnet, 4 seconds behind him. Boldy is the last unlapped runner in 6th for Hawkeye. Missilis is in 7th for Red Archer, ahead of the Nijos of Tom Brutus and Tom Vandervoort, who's got Mikhail Tumala right on his rear, and I think Tumala's about to take that 9th position if he can get it round the outside. He's tried the inside, 2 laps running, sorry. Nope, no joy there. Bernenson is in 11th, 1 lap down. Then Kenny Lybeer 12th, ahead of Pavel Luknovsky 13, Matt Richards 14, and Roy Schroten the final point in 15th. There's again Tumala tries round the outside for Tom Vandervoort, who's just going to run him off the track. 16th is Adam Rouse, 2 down. Mindergaus Columbus is 17th. 3 down. Mark Wicks 18th, 4 down. Tommy Covenant 19, also 4 down. Mark Fuller is 5 laps down in 20th, and Calvin Hermsey now 6 laps down in 21st position. He is your last runner. I think a couple of little battles to finish off, and then have a good beer after this one. Austria do good beer?
Oh, I would expect so. Well, to be honest, the best beer I've ever had was in Belgium. So once we get to Spa, we'll be well sorted.
They're not that far away, are they, really?
No, it's true. It's true.
Got mountains in. That will do.
Yeah. Have a good yodel and a good drink. Anyway.
I'd like to hear you yodeling.
Yeah, well.
Yodel
we'll have to wait for a moment, as we do have a battle for the lead, and Redshaw, he's putting his nose up the inside there into this left-hander, Ranieri covering it, but I think Redshaw will have the racing line, a bit more momentum. Ranieri doing a good job to defend. The time literally is right now for Redshaw. If he wants to get by, and try and build a gap, as Ranieri did to him early on in the race. A little unfortunate for Ranieri, of course, having that minimisation, but all's fair. It could equally happen to Lewis at any point, so it's a bit of a drama, but this one is heating up nicely as we have a mere 12 or so laps to go at this point.
Ranieri, that was a real move across to defend, so clearly he's worried about the slipstreaming ability of Lewis Redshaw in that CSG.
Indeed, and one thing I did note in warm-up, qualifying practice, that CSG, it must have either a very, very good gearing or a very skinny wing. Oh, that's a much better exit from turn 2 there. Much higher top-end speed, a good 5-6 miles an hour, at least on some of the other cars around. So that's always good to have in your back pocket.
Oh, no!
Oh, not enough room.
Sure,
And
not
there's
enough room.
There's a tyre in that gravel as well. I don't think that's related to anything going on here, but all sorts of
That's
body
Tommy
packs.
Covenant.
He evidently lost part of his wagon there, but not ideal. Don't know if there's contact there, or just a little bit of a squeeze, but that gap, well, Giuseppe's got it back to a degree. So Lewis evidently, I'm sure, is not going to be too pleased with that one. But just keep your head cool. You still got another good chunk of laps to do. Just get yourself moving. And actually, I just wanted to call out Lewis's teammate David Vidog. I had been keeping an eye on him. He's been making slow and steady progress. He's got that gap down to his teammate to just 6 seconds now on the account of that little moment. Just had there into turn 3, but consistency. It's building there, and he's catching. So a good race there.
The issue that I have personally with the Ranieri Redshaw moment there was that Ranieri had already cut across on the exit to do the 1 move. He then done the move across to the racing line for 2. But when he moves across to the racing line, there's no actual contact between the 2 drivers, but there is no longer a car's width for Redshaw to actually stay on the track for. So when he broke with his left wheels on the grass, so therefore he's just going to sail off into the world. And so that's kind of put pay to that. So 3.7 the gap between the 2. And I can see that one being a little mini raging oven of joy as we roll on afterwards. The other run of joy is the Vanderbilt to Marla, who are squapping away like I am talking like Jonathan Ross for a second. What on earth was that? I think I've just had a stroke on air.
Fine impressions is what it is.
That's Tomorrow's going through on Tom Vanderbilt. Jesus Christ, and he's going to take that 9th position. It's well deserved if he does. And he joinks it through. Tom Vanderbilt, I think, is going to go for the switcheroo on the exit. But I don't know if that Nijo will have quite the power to hold on around the outside. No, he doesn't.
Not quite. You could see just going into the braking phase, he was a little, this being Vanderbilt, was just on the brakes a little bit earlier, clearly already looking for that opportunity to get the power down on the exit. Perhaps get alongside, just caused Tumala a little bit of an issue, but unfortunately not working out that time round. But, keep an eye out, perhaps take a lap or 2, just watch what Tumala's doing, where he's placing his car, and a lap or 2, a little bit of an attack, a little bit of a move, and try and make the most of whatever you've got there. Meanwhile, it looks like Koivunen has disconnected as well. So
he was the crasher.
He was the crasher indeed, right.
He was our mystery wheel man.
He was the
sadly.
mystery wheel man of lap 60 or so. So there you are. So a pity there, but I'm sure he'll be back strong in the next one.
Just good for Green Stripes to be on there. They were running last in the constructors up until the previous round, where they leapfrog Woods, who are now last. They won't like that, Ollie. And Green Stripes also leapfrogged ST. So the fact that Tumala is in 9th again only mean good things, and they are equal points with Target, who are not looking like scoring here today. So that will be another scout for Green Stripes as they continue to have a mid-season resurgence of form, which is great to see.
Indeed, points in the bank means money at the end of the season, so it's all important points at this point in the championship, so it's good to see. Meanwhile, I think some of that potential rage from Redshaw has actually aided him a bit. He's got a bit quicker, gap down to 2.9 now. I think it was 3.6 or so, a lap or so ago. So, a little lock up there though, down into, I believe that's louder. So, all go as we pass a slow-moving Schroten there. I think is he missing his front wing? Or nope, that's just my eyes. But just a slow-moving Schroten there on exit.
Very late stops for Gergo Baldi and Mikhail Tumala, which has now dropped Tumala down to 11th position as Ranieri gets through and will lap the pair of them, and they're going to come out in between Ranieri and Redshaw. So Redshaw's now got 2 extra cars to deal with that Ranieri never did. But extremely late. I wonder if they just didn't quite get the compounds right, or were just really off strategy, because that seems far too late to have a big pit stop that was scheduled at the end.
Absolutely, and unless it is literally they want to eke out every possible lap on that option compound. I see that these Baldi's gone on to the prime. If it were a case of, okay, we want a last lap hurrah on some nice fresh sticky tyres, would have thought that they would have swapped 2 options. So
the issue is that Rouse is just going around the outside of Schroten for 15th position, and that will push Woods out of the points, because Rouse has now got the inside line for the I think it's the Power Horse curve as we go into the chicane, still side by side. Oh, Schroten desperately try to keep that car in over the bump and over the hill, but he's lost a little bit of traction on Rouse, and This point is crucial for Woods to try and get some kind of momentum back into that team's championship. They are falling by the wayside. They need some luck, and they need that 15th.
Absolutely. Well, there's still time to do it. We've got 10 laps or so remaining. Actually, no, I like a little less than that. I'm looking at where these two are in the grand scheme of things, but still, plenty of time lap-wise to make a move. And as you say, every point is precious, so you want to make sure that you get those scored. And it looks like Schroten is having a little look. Can he get it done on the brakes? Oh, very kind of late. Push Rouse perhaps a little onto the curb there. Might not get good traction, but that car, that Torrent car, really got some good grunt in there. So he's been able to hold on to that one for now.
Wide coming round to lap them, and if anything, Rouse has now been pushed slightly wide by Schroten as they come round to this middle section again. Fidek trying to get them through, and if anything, now because they're side by side, Fidek's like, well, which way do I go, chaps?
Exactly.
Let me through.
In particular, that left-hander just a moment ago, you could see Fidek just had so much more pace than, or going into the corner there, almost ran into the back of, I think that was Schroten at the time. So that would have been a real disaster. Obviously, running really well, had a really strong race here for P3. To have a moment with a back marker, that would not be ideal. So, by the looks of it, Fidek's getting Rouse out the way now, and Schroten and Rouse will be able to begin again with their fight.
Fidek, 7 races so far we have ran, 7 podiums he doth have, and if he can make that 8 in a row, he will continue his ascent and trying to beat Lucas Euler's records of podiums on the trot. That will certainly please him. Not always on the top step, you don't need to be if that is the consistency that you're going for when everyone else is falling off round you, left, right and centre.
Yes, indeed. And as we've mentioned a few times now, it is all about that consistency. So if you can, continually string together those podium positions, you're going to be in a strong position at the end of the year. So a good performance so far, and I'm sure Fidek will be looking forward to having a little sip on some champagne or beverage of his choice in just a few laps' time.
Give him rose water. He's not old enough. Luknovsky trying to unlap himself. Sorry, from Tom van der Voort. I thought that was a battle, but it's not really. I was getting all excited over not a lot. In the Rouse versus Schroten, that is still going on, but Rouse is ahead of Schroten still for that one. And they've actually pulled away massively from Mindergaus Columbus. Something's gone a bit awry with that Target racing car, sadly, towards the last 10 laps or so. And I think Matt Richards is disconnected because he's missing from my game on the prime tyres from 17th in the Kerno. That's a shame for them if he does disconnect overall. Be a formality.
Yeah, indeed. And there you go. Unfortunately, yes, he has just disconnected there. Especially so close to the end of the race. A good showing there in the Kerno car. Just on the edge of points. But I think he can be proud of that, or his race to that point. It's a great pity he wasn't able to finish.
Would you prefer to retire on lap 1 or on lap 70?
I would probably prefer to retire on lap 1. I would be annoyed as anything because obviously you don't get a chance to run your race, but at the same time, if you're within touching distance, you can smell that finish line. You can smell the champagne if you've done particularly well. I would be absolutely devastated if you disconnected with 1 to go.
Schroten's into the pits. Quite know why. Has he only done option tyres all the way? Yes, because he's now gone for the primes. Oh dear, it's all gone Schroten's up for him.
Oh.
So we'll see if Adams may be doing the same as well. We'll soon find out. But that is an interesting one. I never quite get why you would go for a pit stop right at the very end if there's not a massive...
Of course. All. Yeah, and with the cars, in particular, being very, very delicately balanced, it might just be that extra little bit of grip you can get on the option tyre that makes that car work, whereas the prime perhaps not. So, although perhaps not that conventional, evidently might be the fastest way to get that car up to the finish line.
Mark Wicks lapped by the car directly ahead of him on the track. Gas Columbus lapping Mark Wicks 16th and 17th. That's always a sad one when no one's even on the same lap as you. when we were on with just 2 laps left to go after the one that we're on, and it's 3 seconds from Ranieri and Redshaw, then Fiduk, Roland, Hamnet, Boldy, Missilis, Heasterbeek, Vandervoort and Vernonson your top 10 with Timala, Libeer, Lugnovsky, Rouse and Schroeter your point scorers so far.
Indeed, and it's interesting to see that arguably the 3 most developed cars on the grid are currently all being in their relative positions at the moment. So clearly the car's working well here today at the A1 ring. Drivers being able to get maximum potential out of them, and well, we've seen some great racing between Ranieri and Redshaw. And as we come towards the final few laps here now, it's going to be, I'm sure, that's that sensation of having had a good drive and just thinking about getting the car home, making no silly mistakes. As we had a slow recovering, I think that was Fuller there, just rejoining the track as Ranieri passed him. Just getting that car home, nice and safely, not doing anything daft. And yeah, I'm sure that end of race sensation we get.
Rouse then does pop into the pits. Good job, our cameraman extraordinaire is related to that team, so he can keep us up to date with all the dodgy stuff that's going on. He switches to the primes as well, and it looks like he could well be out nicely ahead of Schroeter. It's close actually, but I think Rouse will have it. Just as we're coming towards the end of the race, actually, we've got this your first time playing around with the old Super League. How have you found it in relation to the other formulas that you played in?
You want to know something? It's been really interesting because it's a different animal. So things like Formula Challenge, you have that mentality of it being a sprint race. You're more willing to chuck yourself into it. I've really enjoyed myself this evening because you can see the various teams and their strategies and the thought process, and of course you have the whole other element as far as car development and such go. So it's been really interesting just to see how things pan out, and I'm sure as the season carries on, we'll have different teams being able to optimise their cars and get the most out of them for different races. So I think we're going to be in for a real treat. CSG have got the run at the moment, but you never know what a few poor results can do.
Ranieri on his final lap then, 2.9 clear of Lewis Redshaw as they round the last corners. Thankfully, I was just keeping a beady eye on Hermsey. He's not going to be lapped for the 8th time as Mark Wicks gets so far out of the way from the car. I don't know if he's been off and has damaged his car, but he actually drove off the circuit to be lapped again, so not good for him. But Ranieri, it has been a very long time coming for the Midnight Motorsport driver car, or car driver, sorry. He has won 2 races, then suffered 2 horrible DNFs, which has halted his championship challenge, but today he put the wheels back on. And for Midnight Motorsport, Giuseppe Ranieri wins the Austrian Grand Prix for GPVWC Super League 2014. Lewis Redshaw comes home a valiant 2nd position. There'll be plenty to be said on that incident between them earlier. David Fiduk continues the podium run on 3rd position, catching all of the champagne that he can. Nick Rowland will be in 4th position for the other Midnight Motorsports, ahead of Harley Hamnet, the sole Hawkeye, to finish on the lead lap, and the last person to be on the lead lap, to be fair, in 5th position. Then a lap down, Gergo Boldy in 6th position, who's already parked it and is celebrating that one. Davidus Missilis is in 7th position, just coming round the final corner now on his prime tyres, just ahead of Ruud Heasterbeek. I hadn't realised how close they had got to each other, to be fair. But the Red Archer holds off the Nijo. Tom Vandervoort will be in 9th position, ahead of Morten Wernensen, who is in 10th, 2 laps down. Mikhail Tumala 11th. The Green Stripes did get points in the end and will move ahead of target. Vodball Racing get points again with Kenny Libeer in 12th. They have a brilliant driver. No one can kill Kenny. 13th is Pavel Luknovsky, just crossing the line now. Then 3 laps down, but in the points, Adam Rouse for Torrent Motorsports. And he'll be delighted with that because I believe that is his 2nd points so far this year. Roy Schroeter grabs a point for Woods, and they desperately need that. Then out of the points, 4 laps down, targets Mindergaus Columbus. Then 17th, 5 laps down, Mark Wicks, who said, I will know all the blue flags. He did. But he beat home Mark Fuller, 6 laps down for ST, and this will be, I think, ST's first double finish this year since... Actually, it's their 2nd double finish this year, where... Kevin Hermsey finishes 7 laps down and there as well. So the retirements, Matt Richards disconnected, Tommy Covenant binned it, as did Boyd Bryson, Augustin Canapino disconnection, a crash for Kieran Ryan, and for Jordan Weeks. Ben Warren had a disconnect. And 2 more crashes in the form of Peter Kaza and Ben Horrell. How is it for you, Mr. Williams?
You want to know something? I've really enjoyed this evening. You might not get all the wheel-to-wheel action you may say get in a touring car race or the aggression of say a sprint formula, but it's refreshing to see a completely different style of racing. I think we saw some great and hard racing from all of our finishes. Redshaw nailed the start. He just got pipped in that little first stint there, and he had a great comeback in the end there. Just a moment there just cost him. Fidok, although he may not have been on screen too much, he has driven a brilliant, consistent race. He's continued that podium run. And, there's good points for other teams as well. Hawkeye, another great, or a good finish there. Two finishes inside the top 10. And the Niger guys, they had some great battling during the race as well. So all in all, a very good evening. I've enjoyed it. And I hope everyone watching has as well. So yeah, very good. I enjoyed myself.
Good stuff. Great job all round. This I always liken this series to, when you go to the Indian restaurant and they bring out the hot plates with the little burners on. It may never be burning always on full heat, but once you get it, it's going to be tasty and
Indeed, very tasty. Yes.
Giuseppe Ranieri then takes the win. My quote from the chat room today comes from Yuri Ogiano, who says "Grande Pepe" with lots of E's on the end. So I think he has some fans out there that are very happy. But we've been joined by two certain CSG drivers, and I think we should go straight in with Lewis Redshaw, and let's cut straight to the controversy. Talk us through those last 10 laps after what was a real intense battle between yourself and Giuseppe Ranieri leading up to that.
Don't really want to say too much right now, to be honest, but yeah, he obviously was struggling. He had that screen freeze, which is fair enough, and then I still had to close the gap. Was so much better under braking and traction. I nearly had him the lap before, and I nailed the exit off 2. He went straight to the inside to defend it, so I went right to the outside, and then right in the braking zone, he just moved right over and left me nowhere. I heard some people in the chat saying I wasn't alongside him, but if I wasn't alongside him, I'd have hit his rear wing, and I actually hit his side pod. So I don't really know what to say. I want to check the replay, obviously, myself, but I think we lost a win today, especially with what happened at the start as well.
Okay. Because yes, it's the first time in a while that we've actually seen you two back on track racing properly side by side again. And the last time that we had that was Bahrain, if I remember rightly,
Yeah.
and there was blows there as well. So are the gloves off?
I think the gloves have been off pretty much since Malaysia. So, but we'll see. It's a long way to go still. I mean, I still got second. David's, still got a 2-3 on the podium, which, considering where we were about 3 p.m. this afternoon, we didn't think we'd do. So, to still get a good result like that, we're still leading the championship by miles, and we're still going to win it. So, that's all I can say about that, really.
Good bit of enthusiasm. It's what I like to see. Now, I must admit, Lewis, I saw you in the warm-up just before the race. You were practicing some starts, and you got that banzai of a start off the line. Talk us through what you were thinking once, obviously, you got the car moving. And once you got into lead, were you sort of thinking about having to defend too much, or were you just trying to get a nice gap from Giuseppe at the start?
Yeah, that start was a bit weird. The initial half a second or so felt awful, and I saw David, because he's always brilliant at starts. I saw him start to move forward, and I knew Ranieri's never been fantastic. But then just from that point on, it was amazing. I've never had such a good start. So, and I knew he'd be quick. I know their car's quicker. So I knew I had to just try and defend. And I think I was doing a good enough job. His top speed was much higher, and I could keep him behind. I knew where I was stronger, and I knew where he was stronger. And then obviously going up the hill towards the second to last corner, an ST with no one behind it, no one in front of it. It was racing. It was going a lap down so early. He didn't let me through going up the hill and along that straight, and then suddenly obviously decided, and I must have got sucked into this toe or something, because I put the brakes on to brake for the corner, and both fronts just locked, and there was nothing I could do. It just went. So obviously he tapped him a little bit and lost the place to Ranieri, but still, it's one of those things, isn't it?
Indeed. And I can recall thinking at the time, a case of wrong place, wrong time, and trust me, you weren't the only person to be caught out by a little bit of backmarker shenanigan, but that's racing.
It is.
Anyway, I've already mentioned it, but David, great race there. Once you sorted out Roland and got into third place, I must admit, I know the feeling of just seeing clean air in front of you and just a gap which doesn't seem to be able to get closed down, but you drove a great race there. Talk us through it.
Yeah, tell me about it. The start was I can't remember the start. What happened? Yeah, it was all right. I managed to get side by side with Lewis. I think Nick had a flyer, so I had to just brake early and cut back. But that let obviously Nick pass, and then going into turn 3, I went down the inside of Nick, and I looked up a bit, and we tangled wheels, and that let Harley through. So I took my time waiting for Nick to get past, but he wasn't confident due to Harley's lag, and when I got past Nick, I just had to go down the inside of Harley and just pray and try and defend or block. But yeah, it was kind of lonely after that. My pace was okay. There was laps where I was closing down a couple of attempts, but lose a couple of attempts. You know, me and Lewis have been so close all season, so I expected that again today, and it was just like that. But yeah, I was hoping they two would tango a bit more up front so I could close up a bit. But it was a good race, man. I'm happy with a podium. Like you said, I've not been off it so far this season. I've still led every lap in every race this season. So for my first season in the Super League, I'm really happy with the season so far.
And yeah, do you fancy anything other than a 1-2 or a 3 at some point this year?
Well,
it's going quite nicely.
A win with the others not around me, because
cool.
I've lost that again to Lewis today. I mean, you know, I'll repeat it so many times. We're so close, you know, that every race is going to be crucial, man. And even though I'd be happy with second or third in the championship for my first season, obviously your main target is to beat your teammates. So, you know, I want to get back onto what I did in Bahrain somehow in the next race for Silverstone and try and do something, man.
Talking of Silverstone, obviously it's going to be a track that requires a car that is nimble, which clearly you've got, and a track that is going to play probably a little bit to the powerhouses as well in the engine side, which will again put CSG very much out front along with the Midnights along with you. Home race as well, so Does that carry a little bit of extra pressure for you? Would you like to do particularly well around Silverstone?
I'd love to do well. I've always gone well at Silverstone. Formula Challenge last year was my first win in GPVWC, and that was from 17th or something like that. So I've got a good pace there. The young drivers test, I was first there. I think I was like 0.4 ahead of Giuseppe in similar cars. So yeah, again, happy with that. Yeah, I love the challenge of Silverstone. I don't feel as much pressure. When it's a track I love, I tend to just relax and do better. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but I've got to do something anyway. Hey.
Well, I think the gauntlet is well and truly laid down. Thank you so much to Lewis Redshaw and David Fiddick for joining us as ever in the broadcast booth. It's great to have all access to the drivers in every position and orifice possible. I think that pretty much wraps us up for today, doesn't it? It's been a fantastic time. Thank you ever so much, Matt, for coming along and playing with us today, and it's hope to have you back.
Oh, absolutely. It's been fun. And yes, we'll hopefully see more of one another in 2 weeks' time for Silverstone.
Excellent. I was going to say it's a date, but I don't want to take tongues wagging, and otherwise you'll be Chuggy known for a different entirely way of chugging. Thank you very much to Simon Melhuish, who is at last minute had to come in and do cameras for us. He's not very well, so we wish him all the very best as well. You guys all take care. I look forward to seeing you for ITC on Monday, 8 o'clock-ish as usual for the next round of that, and then we'll be back for Formula Challenge, Super Cup, and the full Super League itself at Silverstone in 2 weeks' time. You guys take care, and we'll see you soon.